Hello again, my name is Sam Robinson and I'm the Gnostic Syncretist, and this is the Gnostic Syncretist Podcast. Thank you for joining me tonight. Everybody's is welcome on this channel, and all belief systems are absolutely welcome, no matter their background or system of belief, here on the Gnostic Syncretist Podcast. So today I want to go into the science of astrology and its use and certain misconceptions of astrology, and also the differences between the Eastern and Western zodiac, which is the tropical zodiac and the sidereal zodiac, and how they have some differences, and how you may not be the sign that you think you are. So, besides that, I'd also like to go over how astrology functions in terms of exactly what is occurring when we mean, you know, we have a day or a month or even your birth, and how we have, you know, a birth sign, and there's certain characteristics that are attributed to people born on those days, and what that really means in terms of the dynamic behind those characteristics, and what people really mean when they say, well, your astrological sign is this, these are your characteristics, and it's based on when you're born. Or even more specifically, what are the significance and pivotal aspects of, say, an equinox or a solstice, and how those factor into astrology as days of energy, of an influx of, so to speak, energetic resonance patterns that come in on those days, are very potent and can be utilized for good or for bad, depending on who's utilizing it and what you're utilizing it for, and how this actually works. Is this actually just, you know, we say that, you know, so to speak, the different planets in our solar system affect us. Is that what's actually occurring? Are we really just feeling the energy, say, from Saturn's vibrations, or Jupiter, or Venus, or Mars, or Mercury, or Neptune, or Uranus? Is that actually what's occurring? Or is it something a little bit different going on here? So that's what the outline will be today. We're going to cover these topics. So once again, thank you for joining me. My name is Sam Robinson. So, the science of astrology and its usage goes way back into antiquity, obviously. And, you know, the first zodiacs were most likely created by the Indians in East Asia, or the Sumerians in Mesopotamia. But we don't have any records of the Sumerians having those dates or using the zodiac and the signs, but we do have the Indian zodiac. We do have the Indians using the sidereal zodiac, and we have them doing astronomy years before the West ever did. And it's been concluded that they started their age around, what is it, 30? I think it's around 3107. There was a conjunction of several planets, 2 planets, and an actual lunar, I think it was a lunar eclipse around that time, and this has been verified for a long time. Of course, the West in the 1800s, which Blavatsky debunks, and using a certain scientist who really studied this, they actually thought that they got their dates of astronomy and the zodiac from the Greeks, and that they'd stolen it from the Greeks and went back retroactively to put those dates in their system, so that when you find their system, that they really just copied from the West, because obviously the East can't, you know, in any way defeat the West or be ahead of its time, because, you know, the West is better than everybody, apparently, is what they actually think. But they were proven incorrect. Blavatsky shows this in The Secret Doctrine, and that they go back to at least 3000 BC, and that they understood the precession of the equinoxes, which is the 25,000, I think it's about 20, almost 26,000, but 25,000, like 928, or around that, years for an entire precession of the equinoxes, which is really when the 12 signs of the zodiac go through each period and circle back around at the end, which is called one precession of the equinox, which allowed them to understand the wobble of the actual of our Earth in its tilt, because it changes over time over these precessions. So, but you have the Dendera zodiac found at the Temple of Dendera as the ancient temple, and that was shown to be extremely old. Some speculating that it actually depicts 3 different shifts in the precession, which would be 75,000 years, and 3 different potential pole shifts, where things are reversed and it flip-flops. And there's Manly P. Hall and both Blavatsky mentioned this Dendera zodiac depicting this change in the precessions, and that it had covered 3 cycles. So you could say it goes even much further back than that. But when it goes through the precession, roughly each period of the 12 is about around 2,000 years, so, or a little over. So you have an age of Taurus, an age of Aquarius, an age of Pisces, an age of, Capricorn. And this also plays into the symbolism that is used during each one of these ages. So you have deity worship and a pronounced amount, a large significant amount of the depictions, say the slaying of the bull with Mithra, which is really the ram, signifying Aries, and then you have the Taurus signifying the bull. You have the bull and the ram, and then you have the age of Pisces, which is the one we've been in for 2,000 years, which is the age of the fish. And then we're going into the age of Aquarius. So each one of these periods is roughly 2,000 years and involves certain energies that are abundant during that each one of these 2,000 year periods. So what they really mean is that there's a significant correlation of energy patterns during each one of these sections of the zodiac. And not to mention the least of which is the fact that the iconography and the sacred symbolism of each age is akin to the zodiac sign itself. If you go far back, you have the age of Aries, and then after that you have the age of Taurus. And each one of the major civilizations during those time periods correlate to depictions of both those symbols. And then you have the age of Pisces, which is the age of the fish, and you have all this fish symbolism come about, through Jesus and various other things, and it's everywhere. And it signifies and highlights that each one of these ages is really an age of influx of a certain type of development and a certain type of energy that comes in for a long period of time, and then we essentially evolve out of that stage. Well, evolve maybe not the right word, but we develop according to the sign of the age, and then we move into the next one every 2,000 years or so. So and then on a more micro scale, if you want to go into the different zodiacs and what is really occurring when you are trying to use astrology to understand, your birth sign. You have a sun sign and a moon sign, and you have a birth chart. I'm a Capricorn. I'm born, I'm January 31st. Now, here's the interesting part. In the tropical zodiac, January 31st makes me an Aquarius. But in the sidereal zodiac, which is the eastern zodiac, I'm actually a Capricorn. And when you look in the two zodiacs, the tropical zodiac and the sidereal zodiac started to diverge around the age of Alexander the Great, to where by the time we're living right now, it is basically they've become deviated by an entire sign by 15 degrees, I think it'd be about 15 degrees, to where in one zodiac you're one sign, and in the other zodiac you're most likely a different sign, most likely the preceding sign, the one behind the sign you think that you are in the tropical zodiac. In the sidereal zodiac, you go backwards, and they've deviated. And part of the reason for this is because the tropical zodiac does not utilize the stars as points of reference, which was pretty dumbfounding to me and staggering to find that out. Not to mention, when I was reading my horoscopes, I kept getting these errors, basically, that really didn't align with what was going on with each day, or with the week, or the different energies that were supposed to be going on. And I eventually realized, after a while, that I was actually not that sign at all. I was actually the Capricorn sign. And when I started looking at my horoscopes from that perspective, I actually found the pattern synced up entirely, and I realized that this is a major significance, that we are not the sign we think we are, most likely, it being a sign behind that sign, the previous sign. So that is an extremely pivotal difference if you're an Aquarius, or you're a Capricorn, or you're an Aries, or a Pisces, or you're a Gemini or a Taurus. That makes a huge difference in terms of if you're someone who does read their horoscopes on a regular basis, and have found a website or a person that is able to give extremely accurate signs for those days, give that information that corresponds to your actual horoscope sign and zodiac sign, you will absolutely be either running with errors or with accuracy. So it absolutely makes a difference to know which one you are in each zodiac, tropical and sidereal. So that's one of the major differences, is that you're a sign behind when it comes to the sidereal zodiac. And with the sidereal zodiac, they actually include the stars, the planets, the stars, the sun, the moon, so as points of reference. So it's more complex, and it's a little bit more sophisticated, and it has more points of reference than the tropical one, and thus I've found it to be more accurate, because, not to mention, it's the eastern zodiac. It's the one from the east, and the one from the west is the tropical. And I finally realized that the tropical one did not work for me, and I doubt it works for many others, unless you're one of those rare individuals who happens to be the same sign in both, like my brother, who's a Taurus, born on the 15th of May. He's actually at the very beginning of the very end of each one of those, no matter which one you use, which was interesting to me, but that doesn't happen very often. It just depends on the date. So, and furthermore, what the zodiac and the precession of the equinoxes signifies and expresses energetically are certain laws of periodicity. And the law of periodicity are laws of recurring cycles of energies that become influxed at certain times, whether it's every so many thousands of years, every year, on certain parts of the year, like on the equinoxes or the solstices, or on different days. But obviously, large effluxes of energy that come in and affect us are cyclical, and so thus they can be mapped out and utilized because they are inevitable. They are inevitable changes of energy, which is something that can be utilized not only by yourself for daily or yearly self-development and prior knowledge of what something might be like that day, whether it's a good day to do this, or a good day to perform spiritual work, or it's a good day to do something more mundane on the physical plane as far as work goes, or if it's a good month to do that, for God's sakes. So I've found that depending on the year, the part of the year it's in, whether it's the spring, the summer, the fall, or the winter, different energies are in flux at different times of the year. But there are larger periods of time where there are correlating factors, like multiple planets being in alignment, or all the planets being in alignment at the same time, say around like a solstice, when there's planetary alignments around a solstice or an equinox, there's a major energetic change on the planet. And these things have been mapped out for thousands of years. And I will absolutely say, without a doubt, that the power elite of the world utilize these energies all the time to do major world-changing events. I mean, for instance, you can find that the strikes on the Middle East that happened earlier this year, like a month ago, occurred around the summer solstice, almost to the day of the 20th and the 21st. That's not a coincidence. Other major things happen like that all the time, where these, an assassination or a war or a financial collapse or a financial change. The major world events typically happen, at least in the last 75 years, around these equinoxes and solstices or these planetary alignments and changes in energy patterns, because the elites study this stuff, because it actually works. Which is why, if you look into it, like a lot of these people, whether it's the King of England or Donald Trump or somebody else, they all have astrologers that work with them. And you think that's just them being rather kooky. It's really not. It actually totally works for predictive patterning of which days you should perform which actions and which days are bad for you to try to accomplish that action or that mission for the day. And they will hold off and wait till there's a better energy pattern going on. And it's a vast study and a vast scheme of changing resonance patterns on the planet. That's really what's going on. So further, to go a little bit deeper, in my book, well, it's not my book, in this book, Dion Fortune's Mystical Kabbalah, she explains how certain astrological signs have to be placed, the signs of the zodiac, furthermore, placed on the tree of life in the Kabbalah. And so you have the 10 Sephiroth, and you have the 10 spheres, then you have the 22 paths. When you use the Kabbalah as a guidebook and a glyph for evolving your consciousness and self-development, you have to also utilize the tarot and the zodiac system. You have to place the planets on the tree, you have to place the elements on the tree, you have to place the tarot on the tree, either on the paths or on the spheres themselves. And what ends up occurring is you can use the astrological zodiac signs to further elaborate and draw out more meaning from the tree itself by referencing the characteristics of those signs with the sphere or the path on the tree that you're studying. And so it adds a layer of correspondences to the tree of life in the Kabbalah, and is absolutely fundamental to that. Now, another interesting thing that she explains was what's actually occurring when you say there's an energy that's affecting you on a certain day or a certain part of the year or through a certain celestial event. What's actually occurring? And the way Dion Fortune explains this is that during one of those periods, it's not that the other planets say, you're in the sign of Taurus, or, we're in the sign of Venus and there's a conjunction going on, and Venus specifically is affecting you, or Jupiter or Saturn is affecting you personally, or like they're sending an energy to us. Like they're vibrating a frequency that then reaches all the way down here and it impacts us. And I used to actually believe that's what was occurring as well. That's not at all what's occurring, according to Dion Fortune, who was a master Kabbalist and white occultist during the early 1900s up until 1945. And all of her books are very much worth reading, specifically the Mystical Kabbalah. But she explains that what's really occurring is that there are cosmic and celestial reoccurring patterns of energetic change of frequency for the whole entire solar system itself. That when we say that you've entered the sign of any of these celestial bodies, it doesn't matter what it is. What we're really saying, what it's really stating, is that there is an energy change across the solar system, which is significant, and that since the Earth is also a part of the solar system, it also is affected by this holistic solar system-wide energy pattern shift, and thus the Earth itself starts vibrating at whatever frequency and whatever energy flux that is at. And then since we're beings on that planet, we are within the Schumann resonance and within the energy sphere of the Earth itself. Thus, the Earth's energy affects us since we're beings upon the planet itself. So it's not that those planets are actually affecting us. It's that they are a marker of an energy change of a certain type that really signifies that the Earth has shifted its energy pattern, and thus our own, because we're on the planet and we're within that sphere of energy that it's resonating at when it changes its pattern of energetic frequency. And so it's more complicated than, we're being affected by Saturn. It's not that at all, or affected by any of these celestial bodies. It's more that when they shift, it signifies a whole shift for the solar system of a cosmic influx, which then affects the Earth frequency, which then affects ourselves. And thus you can pick up certain characteristic energy patterns and changes of vibration that will be affecting you on the various days that this occurs, or the various years, or during the equinoxes or the solstices. It's more complex. It's actually a very complex science. I know most people really don't take it very seriously, or if they do, it's a very superficial usage of this of the zodiac and astrology itself. It's really quite a deep science for predictive energy patterning of the Earth and of the cycles of various things, from when financial collapse or financial swings, as well as the mating patterns of various animals, insects, or ourselves. There's always an influx and a rhythm to the entirety of the whole Earth and of the solar system and the cosmos, the galaxy. And when these energy patterns change, there's a shift, and we feel that shift, and so does everything else on the Earth. And there's different time frames for which these occur, whether it's a year and a half, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years. And when these shifts occur, if you have knowledge of these shifts and when they're going to occur, you may not be able to halt a downswing in energy, say in the financial sector. But what you can do is, if you understand these patterns, you'll know that they're coming, and you can say you're a central bank, you can mitigate that pattern. You can mitigate the downflux in the market based on the pattern. And this has been studied. This has absolutely been studied. Also, and you can also make it so you can either mitigate it or make it even worse if you want to make it, like, say, a crash as opposed to a small recession. You can do either one based on this power differential of knowledge of when these cycles occur, and these cycles are always occurring and always reoccurring. Thus, it's the law of periodicity. It's periodically occurring and is inevitably going to occur again. And once you know those cyclical changes in whatever field of energetic flux you're talking about, you can utilize that for advantage, or for self-development, or for a financial move, or a career move, or any other type of move. But this law of cycles is absolutely workable and usable, and is used all the time by people at the top of our world hierarchy all the time, whether it's to do perform some sort of event of significance, like a war event, some striking some part of your enemy, launching missiles or whatever, or declaring a war, or mitigating a recession that is incoming, or performing some sort of misleading and deceptive event to the public at large that you can use in those moments, because the energy will be at the right time, and people will be in the right, because it's really signifying a change in consciousness in a large sense on these days. And these energy fluxes are changes of consciousness, because consciousness is a state of energy. And certain periods are more or less productive for certain states of consciousness and not so productive for others. And so if you want to perform some sort of deception, you would utilize them around a certain time frame. I mean, just look at the outbreak of 5 years ago. It is right around the spring equinox. Let's be real. And the other part of it, 3 months before that, was what? Right around the time of the winter solstice when it's first mentioned. And then, you could just keep going and showing and depicting all these correlating events from world power elites using these dates or using these time frames of energy flux for their own gain and for our disadvantage. So it is a powerful science. It is not what most people think it is. And whether you're using it just for horoscopes or you're using it for placing it on the tree of the Kabbalistic glyph to study the correspondences between the spheres and that planet of the zodiac or the elements, whatever it is a very powerful science that absolutely functions in according with certain laws of cyclical energy cycles that are reoccurring and will remain in flux and reoccurrence for as long as we're alive, 100% of the time. And that knowing these gives you insight into periods of change, periods of great change, periods of minor change, and the advantages and disadvantages that can come about during those periods of change. And you can utilize them for your own advantage and for development. So astrology is really a powerful science, and I know that a lot of people know their zodiac sign, but they may not know their other zodiac sign. And that's something people need to remember, that they need to go and look into what the other sign that they may be actually is, and the sidereal zodiac, because I've rarely met anybody that knows about that there's two zodiacs at all, and that they may be a different sign than the other one, and that one's more accurate. I didn't know that. I was using the wrong sign for well over a year before I realized it. And that correction actually mattered a whole lot in my life when I came to reading horoscopes for myself. You also got to find people out there that are, using the zodiac properly and giving out, not just basic superficial information regarding that day. And there's for better or for worse, there's ones that are out there grifting, and there's ones that are out there actually trying to be accurate and give people insight into what's going to occur that day and what you should look out for. So be wary and be aware of people that are just trying to put out pseudo astrological predictions of horoscopes, and ones that are more accurate than others, because there are plenty of grifters out there trying to do this. So that's all I have for the science and usage of astrology. And once again, my name is Sam Robinson. Thank you for watching. This is the Gnostic Synchronous Podcast, and we'll be seeing you next time.